Okay, so Deborah, common situation, would I call you up and say, hey, I think I've got a case, or would you call me up and say, have I got a case for you?
Usually you call me and say, I think I have a case. Because what's going to happen is after the investigators do their job, and they might work with the local law enforcement hand in hand sometime on some undercover operations, or they might present something to law enforcement and then they come in, you'll call me and you'll say, you know, my detective came to me today and said that he wanted me to sign a search warrant. And I'm not sure exactly what this search warrant's about. So then I'll get a call and I'll highlight some of the issues that need to be addressed in the search warrant, what the investigators were looking for, so forth and so on. And then after the search warrant is executed, then we'll talk again and I'll talk about what charges are appropriate for this type of case and what you should expect, and along down the road, what kind of defense challenges you're going to get and how to get a guilty verdict.
So if I have my drug officers out there and they see what looks like a nice music collection, this may be something you could help me out with.
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes the drug officers call us and say, we know they're selling music. Can you help us and figure out what we need to do to develop the music surveillance so that we can go in and get the drug issue attacked and dealt with? And so that's when I get calls from the prosecutor as well, saying, you know, there's an officer that I know called you and talked to me, and we're trying to figure out how to get this drug dealer arrested. You know, what should I look for? What should I put in that affidavit?
Well, Franca, the cases, is there a typical kind of case, or are they different? How does that work?
Well, I would best describe it as almost your typical investigation. You start from your lower level vendors and you work your way up to what we would call the major distributors and manufacturers. At this particular point in time, we do try to address the manufacturers. One of the reasons that is so important is the number of CDs that can be manufactured at a low cost and be distributed to really affect the local economy, to affect the industry. As an example, one 52-speed CDR burner would be capable of burning a 74-minute CD in a little over a minute. We have just recently had a case in the Pennsylvania area where 291 burners were seized at one time. So you can imagine the effect that has not only the local economy but also the pirate losses in a particular region.
Frank, you've brought for us to see a CD burner that will make 7 copies of an original at one time. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Would you mind walking us through that? It's across the studio here. Just show us what it is and how it works so that we'll understand what we're looking for and what we're dealing with.
Yes, I will, yes. Normally when we go into a manufacturing location with law enforcement, we'll find several articles which indicate the manufacturing of these sound recordings. What you'll see here is what we refer to as a spindle. These spindles usually contain approximately 100 blank CD recordables, which are then loaded into what we would refer to as a CD burner. Burners are also referred to as towers. In this particular case, the original CD would be placed in this top tower, and the blanks would be placed in these burning slots. A very simple process. Trays can be pushed in. Sometimes these CD recordables are defective and won't record, but a majority of the burners will record at any particular time. As you can see from the screen, the original is now being copied. It will show that 7 copies and 14 tracks will be copied in approximately 2.5 minutes. You can also see indication where the original disc is being read from the top of the burner, and the red lights indicate that these CDs are being burned. As I stated before, a 74-minute CD in this particular case, can be burned at a rate of, this is a 40-time burner right here, can be burned at a rate of approximately 2.5 minutes. So every 2.5 minutes, in this particular case, a counterfeiter will be able to produce CDs, which he will fabricate into a finished product and be able to sell on the streets of any city for anywhere from $3 to $5 a piece. All of these burned except for one tray. That occasionally does happen, but at the end of the process, you are able to see, even though this is a poor quality of media here, you're able to see burn marks on the CD recordable.
So unlike a drug case, this can't be done on the street corner. You've got to have the equipment set up to do this, but how do they market it?
Well, strangely enough, the CD burner operations are very compact operations that are capable of operating in a very small area. I would say that you could have a CDR burning operation in a living room and still live in their living room. It's mostly a burn-on-demand situation. Instead of having large quantities of inventory, as in the past, they will burn copies of the most popular music at that particular time, and basically it will be distributed and work its way down to the street vendor level at some point.
And you say street vendor. I've seen people on the streets who have a wagon or a cart or something and bunches of CDs. How do you know whether that's legal or not?
Well, we have distribution points in just about every particular way that you can think of. Flea markets, street vendors on the corner, vendors at the market, mom and pop stores. We've even had certain circumstances where there's been hard goods distribution online. For the most part, we will find out where the problem area is. If we have a large area where street vendors are the problem and we're getting complaints from local retailers, legitimate music retailers, we will attack that particular area with enhanced enforcement. It really depends on the situation, on how we handle the investigation.
Well, you get a tip or you get a call from me. What are you looking for?
Well, what we would do is we would go out and try to verify the complaint first. And the way we would do that is we would have one of our investigators or the informant or source of the information make a purchase for us. And based on our examination of the product, we would determine that it would be one of three formats or descriptions: a counterfeit, a pirate, or a bootleg. The most common that we see on the streets is the counterfeit. Now, the counterfeit is the complete reproduction of the original product, which would include the graphics, the trademark, and the actual copyrighted music. The pirate would be a product that has never legitimately been released, but would be a compilation, either one or numerous artists. And that particular CD could have anywhere of 25 or 30 separate songs on that particular product. Lastly, the bootleg. We do not see a lot of these or really take enforcement a lot of the times, but that is a live performance which could have been made at a concert, from a TV show, from a radio show. And that would normally sell for a much larger price than a counterfeit or a pirate, because that is more a collector's item for somebody that would, say, for instance, want all of the Grateful Dead concerts or Rolling Stones concerts.
So the definition of music piracy would include those three categories of offenses?
Yes, it would.
There's also a fourth, though,
Oh.
if I can interrupt. There's online. So there's actually, when you say music piracy, it encompasses 4 different areas. I know a lot of prosecutors say, this is a bootleg, this is a bootleg, but that's not really the correct term. And I think that that it should be addressed. And I tell prosecutors, it's important to use the correct terms, because that could affect what you're trying to prove, and your statute actually outlines what the exact item is that you're trying to prosecute. So we have to remember it's counterfeit, pirate, bootleg, and online.